Since I covered the other day Lexar Aries DDR5 RGB, it was quite okay to check out their NM790 M.2 NVMe Gen4x4, and finally on the channel we get back to the full speeds of Gen4x4 with this one, and it's quite interesting because even up to 4 terabytes it's single-sided SSD. This one here is 2 terabytes and it's again single-sided SSD, and the cool thing is it's in the budget segment. You get those speeds in the budget, and single-sided, which is quite nice and surprisingly positive news, because it doesn't interact too much with when you're pressing the heatsink down. It doesn't do any flex or anything similar to that, but there's more, and I'll get to that part later on. But regarding that, we have a quite interesting M.2 SSD with full Gen4x4 speeds. So I need to go into details to give you some specs so you know what I'm going to talk about, and of course later on we're going to head over to benchmarks because I was shocked a bit because they went a bit, you'll see. So let's go with specs, right? When we're talking about the controller, we have MaxioTech MAP1602, which is drumless controller. It has 4-channel 12nm design, 2400 MTS bus. Now TBW is 1500 terabytes, and the speed for this 2 terabyte, what is stated is 7400 megabytes per second read and 6500 megabytes per second write. We have YMTC 232 layer 3D TLC and 32 megabyte host memory buffer, which covers up a bit for that drumless situation on the controller, which is still good because when we take into consideration the price point and performance, and that this 32 megabyte HMB kind of covers a bit for that drumless situation, it's quite alright, I do have to say. Now let's check out the speeds, and let's be fair, with the ASSD and AtoDisk benchmark, ASSD always shows a bit lower, or maybe the Crystal Disk Mark shows a bit higher speeds. Not quite sure, but when we go to AtoDisk benchmark, what we get here is something to check out consistency, because you have loads of benchmarks, loads of consistent benchmarks, countings, or whatever you read speeds, write speeds, and this is where the SSD heats up and where I could actually check if it has some thermal throttling. So with ASSD, what we got is read speeds go up to 6299.76 megabytes per second, and write speeds go up to 5925.33 megabytes per second, with the thermals going up to 53. Now to mention everything else, AMD Ryzen 9 7900X3D with the ASRock B650E Taichi Lite. So you already know I have a hunk of passive heatsink over there placed on this M.2 SSD. Now, AtoDisk benchmark, what happens is read speeds go up to 6.94 gigabytes per second, while the write speeds go up to 6.14 gigabytes per second, and the thermals go up to 68 degrees Celsius. So here it reached 15 degrees more because it had more consistent workloads, and checking out the speeds in each of the, let's say, segments of running, it didn't had a drastical change in the speeds. So it went up and down by 10 megabytes per second, which is still acceptable, and you won't take that as a negative, of course, because it's only 10 megabytes on 6.7 gigabytes per second. And then we go into Crystal Disk Mark, where we have read speeds reaching 7429.83 megabytes per second, which is for 30 megabytes higher. And in this scenario, since I mentioned earlier 10 megabytes you won't even notice, 30 megabytes here, it's still the same thing, but it's higher than what they wrote on the box and on their website. And the write speed, now this is a bit different, 6638.01 megabyte per second. And as you remember, I mentioned 6500, so that's 140 megabytes higher in, okay, synthetic benchmark, but still it does the job quite nicely here. IOPS read, we have 938,524.41, and IOPS write 846,978.76. The thermals in Crystal Disk Mark reached 70 degrees Celsius, and it didn't go above it. The thing is, frequently what I do is I immediately run benchmarks one after another. So ASSD, AtoDisk benchmark, Crystal Disk Mark. I don't leave it to cool down. I immediately run benchmarks frequently, so I get the maximum thermals what I can expect at the end. Now, 54.9 gigabyte file, read speeds 4.06 gigabytes per second, write speeds 3.78 gigabytes per second as well. Which comes to the point, if you remember me testing that Gen 5x4 SSD, it kind of had the same speeds, similar speeds, a bit higher than these in that 54.9 gigabyte file transfer. But I don't take that into consideration that much, because this is just some sort of a file transfer directly with, I think I should try to get a bigger file, maybe eventually if it's a bigger file or batch of bigger files, it might get more consistency and eventually reach the top speeds. Maybe 54 is a bit less, but comparing to 19.1 that I used couple of times before, 54 it might be just okay for now. I don't know. But regardless of that, Lexar NM790, which is M.2 PCI Gen 4x4 SSD with 2 terabytes of storage. You have 1 and 4 as well. Single-sided, drumless, but still we have that HMB with 32 megabytes. Kind of covers it a bit. But I did have consistency, I did have everything, no thermal throttling, even though it reached 70 degrees Celsius, but I didn't have any issues with transfer speed, so yeah, there's that. Guys, if this is something that you'll think it might work for you, and because of everything that I mentioned, since it is definitely price per performance SSD that will give you, first of all, nice storage, and then it will give you nice speeds and everything else that you need for a certain budget. This is definitely it. So check out the links in the description for the Lexar NM790 1, 2 and 4 terabytes. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button and click the notification bell for future content. Thanks for sticking by, and see you very soon. Bye bye.